All right, folks, I think I am live once again for my Wednesday thing here at the Fiddle Jam Institute, or Outlaw Fiddle Jam as we're talking about, right? And on this channel, which is a combination of my Fiddle Jam educational things and my Outlaw Fiddle instrument building business, which I do not have one here, except the I don't know if you can see that. Nope, can't reach the camera. Except one of the mock-ups I did, the white thing up there. Piece of cardboard. I love that shape. Anyways. So, topic this week is going to be more of giving your life to your bow. But first I want to talk about something else for a second. Check this fiddle out. Does it sound different? If you guessed, it sounds lower a bit, doesn't it? I'm experimenting with this tuning. I love it. When I played Cajun Zydeco music, I used to tune down a whole step all the time. And that was that kind of ringy, zingy, kind of loosey-goosey kind of feel. And this is even lower than that. This is down a step and a half every string. So instead of G, it's now E. Instead of D, it's now B. Instead of A, it's now F sharp. Instead of E, it's now C sharp. Now, what I think of all those keys and notes, I don't have perfect pitch, so it doesn't bother me at all. I have very good relative pitch. So I would still think in G. Same way I always did, would just come out sounding in E. Now you go, oh my God, it's heresy. How could you do that? That's terrible, you know. You might say, but horn players do it all the time. Horn players, as we've talked about here a little bit, are in different keys. You know, tenor sax is a B flat instrument. It means when they play what they've learned to C, it comes out as our B flat. It's all messed up. Same thing for trumpet and clarinet. An alto sax is an E flat instrument. Even crazier, when they play what they've learned to be C, it comes out as our E flat. And a concert pitch, as we call it. Not all horns are like that. Some horns are C instruments, trombone, tuba. What else? I think the oboe is a C instrument. I think the English horn and bassoon, I think, is concert pitched as well. So this isn't that far off to have us do it. I've encouraged people when they're playing in horn bands to tune down a whole step because they can at least converse in the same key as the saxophone player and the trumpet players, especially if you're playing jazz or bebop. It's kind of a cool little trick. Some people think it's cheating. I don't. But I kind of like the sound because think about all you lose. You only lose, you know, a step and a half way up here. Who cares? Yeah, everything gets a little lower and you got a little extra range without getting a 5-string violin or switching to viola. So the only thing I don't like about this, I think it's got this mellow kind of throatiness to it I really like. The other thing I didn't like when I tried this in a band, I played in a blues band for a competition one time. It was a good blues band, and they wanted me as their secret weapon, the fiddle guy. You know, when I was developing, in fact, I used the black tie violin, my first prototype of trying to copy Leo Fender, this one. And I tuned it down a step and a half. I thought it was a cool idea. And I got to the gig, and we did a couple of rehearsals beforehand, and it ended up sounding a little too dull. I realized I probably needed, in order to compete sonically, I probably needed either some tighter strings, some thicker strings, or some maybe cheaper strings. I'm going to be experimenting with that because I love this range. You don't have to get a 5-string violin. You still have 4-string if you're used to that. I'm kind of used to 4-string again, even though I have 5-string as well. And I think, oh, it's the best of both worlds. What do you think? It's kind of a cool thing. I might just experiment with going to steel core strings or something, maybe a good quality set like the Dario fiddle set is steel core, but they're good quality. Maybe put those on here, or even try maybe some viola strings on here and just tune them up a little bit. Hope they don't snap. My violin seems to like that pitch. The different reverb to it. Quite a bit easier to play too because the strings are a little looser. planetary tuners on this violin. I love them. I put those or their equivalent on all my violins that I make too. So playing a fiddle tune definitely tweaks my ear because I'm so used to hearing it in A, like maybe clinch mountain backstep. B part. Kind of cool. So let me know if you like it in the comments. I'm going to be experimenting with this. Maybe I'll keep a fiddle in that tuning just for having a unique sound or something. I don't know what you'd call it either. Maybe some scholar out there would know what you'd call a violin tuned halfway between a violin and a viola. Would it be an alto violin? I don't know. Wouldn't be a baritone violin, I wouldn't think. That'd be even lower. I kind of like alto violin. Makes people go, what's that, right? And that's marketing too. If you put on a CD that you played alto violin, they go, what's that? And they listen for what's that. It's the same reason when I play my quatar, my fretless piccolo bass, I never made a custom-made one. I kept it the same square Steinberger body. It used to be a Steinberger bass. I don't have it out here. And maybe I'll just show that sometime too. And just for marketing purposes, they look at it and go, what's that? And they listen for something different. It looks different, let's listen for it. So a little bit of it's an educational marketing thing. So let's get back up in standard tuning here. Let me see, I got an E back here. See how easy it is with the tuners? The same clinch mountain backstep. Sounds a lot different in the standard tuning, doesn't it? You could experiment yourself, even go higher, tune all the strings up a step, and you won't break them, I don't think. If you go much higher than a step, it might start snapping strings, but I wouldn't worry about it. Experiment. See if you can find your magic sound, one that makes your heart sing. All right, so we were talking last week about bringing life to the bow, the business end, as Daryl Langer calls it. I like that. And I recommended the Sebchik School of Bowing book. I have it on the Fiddle Jam Institute website I looked it up earlier so I could tell you about it. I have a post technique study book suggestions. If you go to the website and just, I think that particular post is open to the public, that one. Some are shut off for people who are paying members, but there's some stuff you can see just for free in the public, and I think that list is it. I suggested Wolfhart, and as etudes to practice. That's how these kind of things got my technique together. If you're a reader, this is no-brainer. If you're a classical person, you've probably already done these things. And Kreutzer studies, and the Sebchik School of Bowing. It's on the site there, S-E-V-C-I-K, Sebchik. And it puts you through the paces. So let's put you through some paces now, even if they seem silly. Part of the deal is learning how to bow in extremes. Oops, everything's falling here. Books falling everywhere. Fiddler's Fake book. By the way, Fiddler's Fake book, does everybody have it? Excellent book to have. If you want the Bible of fiddling stuff, there it is right there. You can get it on Amazon for about 30 bucks. I didn't write it, but I recommend it. If you want to get into fiddling and you're a reader, you can learn like 500 songs in here. All right? And when I was a student earlier learning Baker's Breakdown, bluegrass tune. All right, anyways. So, we did some goofing around last week with placing the bow right at the frog and placing the bow right at the tip. Going back and forth. You want to be aware of the bow for the whole stroke and have it be relaxed. Have all your arm muscles know where they're going and not be strained. No tension in your back or your neck, if possible. No stiffness in your fingers. No stiffness in your wrist or your elbow. Things should move. Right? The fingers should be able to wiggle without the hand moving. Can you do that? We touched on this last week. In the camera, you can't see it, but my hand is really not moving, just the fingers. Can you move the bow maybe an inch, inch and a half up and down by operating your thumb and your fingers loosely? Kind of the thumb pulls up, the fingers go along for the ride. They're kind of the shock absorbers in this case. Again, you can take your hand and hold the other hand in place. See if you can get that. It's like a rocket lifting, but just a little bit. That motion is critical for having life in your bow. If you're doing it slow motion, as I was taught, it's like reeds in the ocean. The wave goes by above it, and it's very like a graceful dance if you're scuba diving underneath. And your fingers should be the same. It actually, if you watch it in slow motion, when you're changing direction of the bow, the hand changes before the bow does. You see that? I'm going to go up bow, and the bow's still going down, and then up bow. The hand changes a little bit ahead of time. Up bow, then it whips at the end. Down bow, up bow, but the hand starts up and then the bow follows. The hand starts down bow, but the bow follows. It may require you to lift your elbow a little higher than normal. And you can't stiffen your wrist either. If you're stiffening your wrist, you're going to go. You stiffen your elbow. Sometimes you put your elbow against the wall. I'll pretend there's a wall here in the camera. Make sure the elbow is kind of stationary and you're bending at it, all right? And really the shoulder only moves a little bit and just up or down for the bow string changes. So these things, if you're a classical violinist, are probably a no-brainer. But I see a lot of classical players play with a stiff hand. So the best ones have a flexible hand. And it helps you really get a breath to the bow because the bow changes aren't... There's that creak. If you're stiff... There's that. Loosen up, lighten up, and get that little grace going on. I did an interview this week with a friend for his podcast, and we talked about things, not just music. My battery's a little low here. Okay, hopefully we'll make it. And we talked about things, not just music, and we talked about things that I learned from music. And one of the things is being aware as an improviser of what you'd like to play a split second before you actually play it, and how this can transfer into your life. I learned this from studies of Kung Fu, where we try and, picture the strike before we'd strike, picture a hand going there. And when you learn these things, it's not just about hitting somebody or poking their eye out or something. It's about one of my very earliest lessons from my friend Mark DeRose. Thank you, Mark. We were young men, and he was a few years more advanced than me in the Kung Fu stuff, sitting at a kitchen table, and I said, so what is Kung Fu? He goes, well, he said, if this table represented everything that Kung Fu was, this grain of salt right here was self-defense. Everybody thinks it's rock'em sock'em, kick somebody in the nose, that kind of thing. And the words Kung Fu, I'm told, I'm not Chinese, but I'm told it's kind of a difficult word to translate. Maybe someone out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but it has work, time, and energy in the translation. So that's like everything, work, time, energy. What doesn't take work, time, and energy? Even opening a doorknob, it takes that. So if you're aware of the doorknob as you come to it, you're aware of your hand coming to the doorknob, and you twist it, not too hard, just right, open the door, everything becomes more graceful because you're aware of it as if you've done it already. And that's the way I try and play music. Try and hear it ahead of time, try and picture it ahead of time, and it transfers to the bow too. So be aware of the whole bow. Now, how do you do that? So bow awareness is something I taught a 93-year-old, and you can see in my probably my most popular video, Scratch and Squeak How Not To. Looked it up on the site. It's got over 1 million views. And I had her, she was struggling at 93-year-old at the beginning. She had a lot of body emotions that she had worked through for over 90 years in her body, and she wasn't quite getting the bowing thing. And I had her connect the two sides of her brain by bowing two-handed for a week. Just put the thing in her lap, and I know the camera isn't showing everything I'm doing, but That way you're very aware of whether the thing is wiggling around, right? You put it in your lap and bow. See if you can bow straight without hitting any other string. And a different angle for the other string. I'm hitting the armrest here, but that kind of thing. So you want to be aware of the tip even when you're at the frog. So the tip shouldn't be wiggling around if you're going to bow straight. So be aware of that tip up there and how lightly you're playing. And have your hands still gracefully change the direction, but don't let the bow flop all around up there. Use for each string, D string. See how my bow is not wiggling around too much? It's easy to make it wiggle around because it doesn't take much to move with your hand when you're at the frog because it gets magnified up there. So don't be sloppy up there. And same thing here. So if you wiggle around when you're at the tip, nothing much happens, right? Nothing happens. But it's magnified at the frog. It's the hardest part of the bow to be clean with and accurate. So that's one thing. Be aware of your bow. Just do some long strokes. It's worth it. It's boring as heck, but it's worth it. And just learn control, learn awareness of the space around you and where the bow is going. And all of a sudden things become more graceful and more easy, and it shows in your sound. All right? This is somewhat advanced stuff, but also somewhat very basic, isn't it, at the same time? My main teacher, Dennis Piwarski, I've said this many times, this story. He goes, yeah, I just wasn't feeling it, today. The violin, he had a day off or something. So I practiced 8 hours today. I said, what'd you do for 8 hours? And he said, this. And this guy's got it getting reacquainted with his violin. 8 hours he did. Serious, right? So if he can do 8 hours, we can do 8 minutes or something, right? Us mere mortals. Anyways, God rest his soul, he passed a few years ago. So, all right, so we're learning to have awareness of our bow and awareness of the sound we're making with the bow. We also need to be aware of the angle of the bow this way. So you don't want to be, I mean, some people teach, having a little bit of a curve around the edge. So we all can have a little bit of wiggle room in there. It wouldn't change the sound too much, but if you tighten your elbow up, if you're bowing from the shoulder, you're going to draw the bow down over the fingerboard. And down here, not like you're choking a goose. Try it with me. Get down there where it starts to sound bad. Start to croak. Kind of like you're choking a goose. Know where that spot is. Know where the spot is where it gets because it gets darker and looser, but also there's one spot. Kind of turns inside out, starts adding harmonic content. We don't want. And we can also go the other way, getting closer and closer to the bridge. It gets brighter and brighter. To one point, the scratch is more than the note, just about. Know where that spot is. Know how to control it. So be aware of these things. Spend your time just taking it easy. You don't have to be blazing saddles and playing some concerto. Make a good tone, because tone is actually #1 for the goosebump factor in my Fiddle Jam Freedom Formula. Make a good sound. You can play one long note behind a singer and people will cry. It's reaching into their heart and does something to the violin, all right? And it's a beautiful tone. If it's a scratchy, ugly sound, people are going to go, oh, God, you want life in your playing. Life comes from a light, loose touch, being aware of the bow and aware of the sound you're making and actually really listening and trying to make your hands do the sound you're hearing in your head. It might take some practice. It might take some awareness. And awareness takes practice, doesn't it? If you do any meditation or something, you'll know something about this. So what else can we do? How about getting aware of different spots of the bow? Keep right down here, and whether the bow is tipped away from you, the stick is away from you, and the classical players tip the stick away from them, because they play on the edge of the hair a little bit. It gives a little more buoyancy, So I tend to play flat. As I got away from the classical thing, it has a thicker sound. I don't like too shrill of a sound. And I'm playing more rhythmically in the styles that I play, so I want a little crunch sometimes. So where's the crunch point? So go slower until you get that point where it's nothing but crunch. Some people might say, that sounds really bad. But can you keep that crunch going for the whole bow? I'm having some A, you hear the A coming in? I'm not doing it perfectly. You'll have no A note. As a different, actually a lower note. There are classical avant-garde violinists who learn to control those sounds and get them as part of their pieces. It takes a lot of bow control. So, that note is lower than you can produce. So there's some classical composers who have harnessed those sounds. Interesting. But where is that spot? So you press hard and move slow. Can you make that sound for the whole stroke? Really awful. The upstroke. Now, why would you practice that? Because you know exactly what not to do. So where is that spot? The speed of the bow, the gentleness of the bow. So start by pressing too hard and moving too slow. And then release it with the hand. A little too hard, a little too slow. And then release it. Crunch and release, like working out at the gym. So know where these spots are. There's 4 directions, isn't there? Up and down the bow, down the string, and back towards the string. Now, another thing you can do, I don't know how much time we have today. A couple minutes. Another thing you can do is try to move the bow slowly or quickly and different dynamics. We experimented last week at the end with playing quick bow stroke the whole stroke, but being quiet. Oh, that's hard. So anybody can go a whole stroke, right? Or can you? I want it fast, the whole stroke, and light. And still have control. A little airiness to the quality, that's okay. That's something you can use as an improviser. Little air, that's a little life, isn't it? So like a singer will have different qualities. It's not normal. If you had just with the bow is kind of floating around, almost no pressure. I'll start a solo that way, you know. And then later full stroke. So you can try and play quickly and lightly. The other thing you can do is try and play short strokes but loud. Thank you. Who is that? I'm seeing somebody said awesome. Appreciate it. Or how loud and long can you play? Like get on the D string, get right down close to the bridge, and play hard without making it scratch. How loud can you go and move the bow slowly? So these are all things. Push yourself to extremes. Make this stuff up. Get the book, The Sebchek School of Bowing. If you want, it's an old-time book. I don't know what it was. I think it's got to be 100 years old, that book. And it'll put you through the paces, doing half the bow, upper half, lower half, loud, quiet, getting louder and quieter within one stroke, and accents in the middle of the stroke. It puts you through all the paces. I highly recommend it as far as bringing life to your playing. Making the sound, the tone is one of my 5 T's. Tone, technique, theory, I don't like that word, but theory, timing, and trust. Learning to trust your own inner self, imagining what you want it to sound like and making that sound. Or in this case, picturing what you want, the motion you want to be, and making your body do that. All right? So I hope that helps. And keep practicing this simple stuff, and it'll pay off big in bringing life and breath into your playing. All right. I'll see. I may have to pre-record one for next week because it's the day before Thanksgiving. But I'll see you next time. All right. Amen.